Good afternoon, everyone. This is Unchain Your Brain, and I am Ryan Bowling. I want to talk about the topic today of the 4th of July. I hope you all have had a great holiday. What I basically did, I just stayed home the whole day. I had the day off, and I had an opportunity to just relax, watch TV, watch the fireworks outside my apartment window, and I had a great time. It was just me and the TV and the fireworks outside. I had a great time, and I hope you all have had a great 4th of July as well. But I want to talk about the topic of the 4th of July. And what I want to talk about dealing with this holiday is that there is this narrative that's being spun among many African Americans that basically the idea is this, that we as blacks collectively in America ought not to honor the 4th of July. Now, I find this interesting because many years ago, there was not that much of a problem with it. But now all of a sudden, there's a problem with celebrating the 4th of July. Well, that's another story, and I digress. It's interesting. However, this narrative that's being spun among blacks in America today is that we as blacks should not celebrate the 4th of July or Independence Day. Why? Well, the reason that they say that we should not celebrate the 4th of July is because the 4th of July was a Revolutionary War that pertained to the 13 white colonies in Great Britain, and how they wanted to be set free from Great Britain because they were suffering from religious persecution and high taxation in an oppressive totalitarian regime. However, my argument on that is that I personally believe that blacks should honor the 4th of July almost more than any other ethnic race here in America. Now, you may say, why is that? Well, first and foremost, what I found out in studying American history, and this is not a great number, but it stated that in American history, it states that during the Revolutionary War, 5,000, that's not a lot, but 5,000 blacks enlisted in the American army or the American military to fight. Now you had to fight the Revolutionary War. Now you had blacks that also enlisted in the British Army because the British were telling the blacks that, hey, we're going to set you guys free. And in fact, the historical record states that the British treated the black slaves more favorably than many of the American slave owners. But whatever the case may be, blacks were involved in the Revolutionary War. It wasn't a lot of them, but they were involved in the Revolutionary War. You had some blacks that enlisted in the British Army. You had some blacks that enlisted in the American Army. Now, you may say, well, why is that important to understand that? Because it's important for blacks, I believe, in America to honor and respect and be thankful for the 4th of July, and that this is a celebration of blacks' freedom as well as the 13 colonies' freedom, is because it was the Revolutionary War that led to the Civil War, which was a war pertaining to setting blacks free in America. If it had not been for the Revolutionary War, then we would not have a civil war. See, the Revolutionary War led to the 13 colonies establishing their own country in 1776, which we collectively know as America. And it was during this time that the Americans, the 13 colonies and others, had a discussion about the evils of slavery. So they were free to do this. They were free to do something about slavery because a lot of whites during the time that Great Britain had control over America, the American colonies, during this time, all the whites did not have slaves, and all of the whites did not agree with slavery. So everyone didn't agree the same. And in fact, you had some black slave holders. What's up with that? You had some blacks that, according to one historical record, stated that over 1,000 blacks were slave holders. And they held black slaves, and from what I understand, and correct me those who may have a bit of history that I may not be familiar with or I may misquote, they had black slaves and some white slaves. Now, regardless of how they may have treated those slaves, whether you want to call them indentured servants or whatever the case is they were slaves and they didn't have rights to their own, they didn't have power over their own lives. So this situation was going on during this time. So everyone did not agree with slavery during the time that the 13 colonies were a part of the British government. But the Revolutionary War, when it was created, when it was initiated, led to the discussion, the overall discussion of the evils of slavery. And that's when the process began. The process of ending slavery in the West began. And eventually, as we all know, historically speaking, eventually it led to what? The Civil War. And the Civil War was all about ending slavery. And during the Civil War, 600,000, at least 600,000 men, black and white, lost their lives in order to free blacks from slavery. This was all, the Civil War was all about freedom from slavery. It was all about, basically all about getting rid of slavery. Unfortunately, it led to war. And unfortunately, it led to hundreds of thousands of black men and white men losing their lives on the battlefield because they wanted to end what they believed to be the slavery, which was an evil institution that took away the rights of human beings on this planet. Now, the Revolutionary War, the 4th of July, led to the 13 colonies' independence, which led to a discussion about the evils of slavery, which led to the war called the Civil War, which led to blacks inevitably being set free in America. And because of this, we as blacks ought to be grateful and not shaking our fists at America and saying, oh, America is founded on racism and slavery. That is not historically true. Let me point out something else as well. It was the West, which includes America, as well as Great Britain and other Western countries, that started the crusade against slavery, which was and is a universal global phenomenon. It was not just relative to America. That is a lie. That is not true. In fact, some months ago, I was listening to some type, I guess he was a teacher, or I believe he was a politician or a teacher or a social justice warrior, SJW. But he's up and he has this, what looks like some kind of African garb on. So I guess because he has this African garb on, I'm supposed to be like, oh, wow, he really for the black people. Black power, man. You know, come on. Come on, man. You have to be as dumb as a box of rocks to believe that somebody wearing a dashiki or wearing some kind of African garb is all for black power. Come on, man. That's a political campaign tactic. Get off it. But anyway, that's another story and I digress. He gets up and he says, makes a totally ludicrous statement. He says, we all know, and I'm paraphrasing his words, but this basically said, we all know that slavery started in America. It started in America? Are you kidding me? Either he was doing one or two things. Either he did not know history or he was lying. Me personally, I think he was lying. He was lying so that they could get the political clout from African Americans who don't do their own homework and study history with an objective view of learning and getting facts objectively, not subjectively, not based on, I want to be pro-black and I want to be pro this and pro that. You got to be pro-factual. Forget about being pro-black, pro-white, pro-this. Be factual. Get the facts. As one person says, you can have your own opinion, but you can't have your own facts. You can't mix it around and try to fix it the way you want to fix it. It is what it is. And I believe he got up here and told a flat out lie, because this was during the campaign trail where Trump and Biden was campaigning, trying to get votes. And of course, those on the progressive left had to make up all these dumb lies. That's a lie. That's right. I said it was dumb. It was dumb. And anyone who accepted that and did not do their own research, I'm sorry, you blind, you've been brainwashed. But anyway, he gets up here and he makes this statement. So this seed gets spread around, this mentality gets spread around among millions of people that America is where slavery started. You have to be crazy to believe that. The slave trade, we all understand that the slave trade began in Europe, not America, but it began in Europe in the 15th century. It began in the 15th century. But what people don't like to talk about is it wasn't Europeans going over to these African countries and like the movie Roots, which was a great movie. I'm not putting Roots down. I really, really liked it. Great acting, great drama. I really liked it. But Roots is historically inaccurate in many aspects. In a scene in the series Roots, you see these white people going in over there with nets and going over to the country and putting the nets over the people and grabbing them and pulling. No, that's not how it happened. We all know, and I'm pretty sure some of you have already heard this, that the black chieftains, the head honchos in Africa, mainly from the western coast, because that was where most of the slaves were taken from or sold from, was the western coast of Africa, sold their slaves, black slaves, to the Europeans. This was done in increments, and it was done excessively. Okay, but we know that that's how it started. But let's get back to the origin of slavery. Slavery did not begin in America. It began thousands of years ago, and it was a global phenomenon. Just about every race, every ethnic group was involved in slavery. In fact, forms of slavery even more brutal than American slavery. So let's get this straight. Even what was it, during the 6th century AD, 6th century AD, 6th to 7th century AD, and I want to say this, and if anyone is a Muslim, I'm not preaching against anyone's religion. I'm not getting into that. I'm just showing you historical facts. Okay, I'm not against your religion or against any of that. That's not what this channel is about. But I'm just dealing with the factual analysis of this. Muslim blacks who practiced the religion of Islam at the time invaded North Africa in the 6th century AD and began to take over North Africa, which at the time, according to some historians, was predominantly Christian. And many believe that it was predominantly Christian because according to the New Testament book of Acts, Philip, I think he was a deacon. Philip was a deacon and an evangelist, and he was evangelizing, and a Ethiopian came over to him, an Ethiopian eunuch came to him and began to ask what must I do to be saved and so forth. But to make a long story short, he got saved, got baptized, went back to Ethiopia, which I believe that's in North Africa, and that's how Christianity became prominent in North Africa. Whatever the case is, the Arab Muslims, and I think I may have said black, I'm sorry, my apologies, but it was the Arab Muslims that invaded that particular region. And correct me if I'm wrong, please. If anyone thinks I'm wrong, correct me on whether it was Arabs or blacks. But I know it was not whites. White enslavement of blacks didn't begin until the 15th century. Prior to that, it was Arab Muslims, it was pirates, Arab Muslims, and others who invaded the African continent and began to take forcefully, as well as selling, Africans from those regions. So Africans were enslaved for hundreds of years prior to the transatlantic slave trade, which started in the 15th century. In other words, slavery didn't originate in America. That's a lie. It's been around for thousands of years. And to make a long story short, I'm going to give you a bit of more information here. Some of you may or may not have heard of this, but those of you who read the Bible, you know, in the book of Exodus, which is dated thousands of years ago, right? Book of Exodus, we see that Moses, the leader of the nation of Israel, leads the nation of Israel out of bondage from who? The Egyptians. The Bible says that they were in slavery for 400 years. 400 years. 400 years of oppressive slavery. Read the book of Exodus. Usually it was oppressive. The Pharaoh at that time oppressed the people. He wore them down. So it wasn't indentured servants and all this kind of stuff. No, it was oppressive slavery. He wore them down. Well, the ancient Egyptians were black. So who enslaved who? All this fighting, fussing and cussing about whites and how evil they are and how they enslaved the blacks for 300 years or 200 years or whatever the case may be, which is another lie, and all this kind of stuff. Wait a minute, if we go back a few thousand years, the first actual race that is, and let me say this too. Many people say that certain groups, and I'm not going to name the group, certain religious groups of today state that the real Jews are the black people. But the real Jews are blacks. Not going to state the religion because that's not what this is for. But some of you know what I'm talking about. They say the original blacks, the black people are the original blacks, and that the Jews right now are imposters. Okay, let's assume that's true. Going back to my discussion or mention of the nation of Israel and Egypt. Let's assume that the nation of Israel at the time were truly black people, and they were the original Jews. Well, the original Egyptians were black, so that basically means that the first ethnic group that enslaved blacks, if the blacks are the true Jews, the first ethnic group that enslaved blacks were blacks, and this was thousands of years ago in ancient times. And not only did they enslave them, but it was an oppressive slavery that lasted 400 years. Forget 200 years or 300 years or whatever else we want to talk about American did. This was 400 years. So who's enslaving who? You can have your own opinion, but you can't have your own facts. Now let's fast forward back to what I was talking about. Blacks today, in my opinion, based on factual data, we should respect the 4th of July, and we should honor it and be thankful and stop causing all this division, because that's all it's causing. Misinformation causes division. It does not help anything. It causes division. We act based off of what we know. When you don't know, you act based off of what somebody says, hearsay. When you don't crack open the book, you will never know. You'll never know. So I wanted to say that. I hope everyone has had a great time, and I hope that your 4th of July was a great time of fireworks and celebrating our freedom, American freedom, which includes blacks. It includes blacks, all right? So be blessed. Have a great day. If you like this video, press the like icon, make your comments, and share this video. Thank you for your time, and God bless you.